So I got a new project in the shop, and I don't really need any more projects right now. This one has a story that I feel like I need to tell. So when I was 15 years old, growing up in California, it's really big into sprint car racing. We had a local track, World of Outlaws would come there. A lot of the guys that raced in the World of Outlaws had shops right there in San Jose, California, actually in Campbell. And every weekend, my grandpa would take me to a sprint car race. I loved it. I looked forward to it. It was the only thing really that I really looked forward to in those days. And that kind of spurred my interest in go-kart racing. So there's several tracks out there. All of them that I knew of at least were dirt oval go-kart tracks. And we're not talking about your run-of-the-mill go-kart you get at, the hardware store or whatever. These were racing go-karts. And I had the opportunity to go to some of those go-kart races with some guys that actually raced. And what they would do is they would let me drive their race carts on the track after the race was over. They'd let me make, 20, 30 laps in it or whatever. I actually made some road racing laps too. And I fell in love. It was all I wanted to do was go-kart race. Now I was 15 years old, didn't have a job, didn't have any money. So I was kind of trying to grassroots it as a naive 15-year-old. The guys that I used to go kart racing with actually had an old chassis they gave me. And the reason this story is so important is because about the same time my uncle gave me a welder to use. He didn't give it to me, he let me use it. It was his. It was the old Lincoln Buzzbox stick welder. Just the old, looked like a tombstone. I guess some people call the Lincoln welders tombstones. And so because I didn't have the money to build this kart out like I needed to, I started welding parts together. And it's kind of what started my love for fabrication that has grown into what it is today. So fast forward, I don't know, probably 2 years. So I was 14, 15 years old. Actually, I might have been younger than that. Let's see, I was probably 12. Fast forward like 2 years, I'm 13, 14 years old, maybe 15. And my mom decided to move to South Carolina. And at the time I was living with my dad. And I was at that age where, young men kind of butt heads with their father. I wasn't doing well in school at all. And so I decided to move out to South Carolina with my mom, leaving behind this racing kart chassis and really all the dreams that I had of kart racing someday. So I moved out here. Obviously, we didn't have sprint car racing out here the way that we had it in California. It was more late model stuff and just didn't really pique my interest as much as the sprint cars did. And so I kind of migrated to drag racing. We had a drag strip that was about 45 minutes from where I live, Atlanta Dragway, which ironically has been torn down, just recently been torn down. It was sold, they're putting up apartments now, and the whole drag strip is gone. But me and my friends, we could take our cars Friday after school, go down there, test and tune all evening and come home, and it was like my new drug. It was the replacement for the sprint car racing that I used to enjoy. So I didn't think much about the kart racing anymore, even though kart racing's kind of big everywhere, right? There's actually a kart racing facility on the way down I-85 on the way to Atlanta Dragway. It's in Carnesville, Georgia. Used to pass it all the time. I would see it. Always kind of stuck in my mind. But, I kind of moved on to what I felt like was bigger and better things at the time, drag racing, and me actually driving the car that I had as my daily. So this is where it gets interesting. Fast forward 30 years. Over those 30 years, I never thought that chassis that I had, that I'd get it back, I'd get it out here. Before I left California, I actually stuck the whole chassis in the attic of a storage building my grandma had at her house. It was a house that she didn't live in, she just rented it out. Along the way, obviously when I'd go back to family reunions or I'd meet up with people, they'd all joke around about my go-kart in the attic. So I knew that it was still there, it was still sitting there, nobody messed with it. Fast forward 30 years, and it's time for my grandma to sell this house. And so my mom calls me and she's like, hey, Grandma's gonna sell the house. Everything's out except for your go-kart. What do you want to do with it? I'm like, just tell them to get rid of it, The Kart at the time was probably an old chassis. 30 years ago, it's probably an old chassis, which is why they gave it to me. Chassis have come a long ways over the years. There was no real reason to kind of ship it out here necessarily to try to compete with it. If I was going to get into kart racing, just buying a new modern chassis would have been the way to go. My mom was kind of like, no, I think you need this thing. I think you need to kind of complete the cycle of what started this for you to where you are now. Not that I'm doing huge things, but I've always been consistent around metal fabrication and creation in the motorsports arena. She's like, I'll tell you what, I'll get my brother, my uncle who still lives in California, to go get it out of the attic, take it to his house, and I'll figure out how to get it out there to you. And I was like, all right, that'd be cool to have it. Maybe me and the kids could rebuild it together and one of the kids could go kart race it, right? So she did. She had it shipped. A guy shows up to my house and this thing's sitting in the back of his truck. And as you can imagine, a kart that had sat for 30 years in the attic. It was, I don't know if there's birds in there, squirrels, what it was. The paint had kind of peeled and faded away. It started to rust. It just looked awful. But I had my kart. I had the kart that started it all for me.
All right, tell me what you've done so far on the go-kart.
So, I haven't really done anything.
Just saw you doing stuff. What'd you do? Okay, then.
And so that's what me and the kids did. We stripped this thing down to nothing, repainted it, cleaned up a lot of the parts, tumbled the bolts that I had that came off of it, just did the best job we possibly could with what we had. So a couple things, I had to order some parts for it. I had to order another axle for it. Obviously a new rear sprocket. The class that the kids run in out here is called Junior Predator. I think it's pretty similar everywhere. I'm not that positive on it, but in this particular class, there is a gear rule. So you have to run a specific toothed gear on the rear, on the axle, and then a specific toothed gear on the clutch itself. Everybody has to run the same thing, which I like because it kind of levels the playing field a little bit. There's a standard weight with every kart class. So when you're kind of limited to gear ratio, you're limited to the weight of the kart with the driver. And in this class, you run a Predator motor right out of the box. Comes from Harbor Freight, $150. You can't touch it, you can't do anything to it. You just stick it on the go-kart. So you're basically limited to horsepower as well. Now, I'm sure there's a lot of other things that I'm missing in this kart. One of the things I know is I don't have any camber adjustment on this bad boy. So as technology had kind of progressed, they made karts that have camber adjustment with a Heim joint on the upper side, so you can kind of adjust that camber on each front wheel separately. This particular kart doesn't have that. Maybe something I can add to it though, because you can buy the spindle mounts. So I may just hack those off, re-weld some new ones on there. There's a couple other things too that I want to show you, but I need your help. If you guys are in kart racing, know somebody in kart racing, I need some parts. You can help me out by donating these parts to me, or if you want to sell them, I'd be happy to buy them. I don't want to put a ton of money into this thing because I don't even know if the kids are going to like it. And I think what I'm going to do is I'm going to try to upgrade this kart and make it a little more modern, put a little fabrication touches in it, you know what I'm saying? And at the very least, go let the kids make some laps. Hell, maybe old Pops might make some laps too. So here it is in all its glory. The kart that started it all. Now you can see some of the stuff is still rusty. I haven't really fooled with it because nowadays everybody puts bodies on these things, and I don't know if that particular front bumper pedal mount is going to work with the body, and so I made this fab one up from scratch once I get the body for it. But I went in here, replaced the hardware, we painted the chassis, And this is what I was talking about on the no camber adjustment. So you can space the hubs on these bad boys on the spindles. The spindles are extra long. You just kind of stack these spacers in there to get the spacing that you want on the hub itself. So you can kind of stagger, you know, if you're doing roundy round stuff, you can kind of stagger this one out, this one in, if that's even the right thing to do. I don't know. But I went ahead and put new tie rod ends in here for the steering. Got a new seat for it, which I haven't mounted yet because I'm kind of waiting to see the motor placement. And I'm also looking at where I want this thing mounted. So from looking at a lot of the new karts nowadays, they basically offset the seat way far left, which I kind of have it spaced now. But if you look from the front, you can see that the steering does not line up with that seat. And that's because it wasn't designed to be offset that much. The new karts actually have the mounting for the steering offset as well. Now that may be something I do too. I may come in here and kind of lob these off, move this over, make a separate mount section for down here. I've seen some of them have some kind of hind joint set up where you can kind of adjust the bottom piece. So I may do that. If I do offset the seat on this thing, I'm gonna have to make some clearance in here. So yeah. New axle. Kind of just basically placed in here now. I just centered it up just to kind of make it easy, and then I can offset the wheels and tires with the hubs. You can kind of slide these things on the axle however you want to. So from the back side, you can really see the offset on that seat. So here's the deal. This is what I need. If you got, and it doesn't have to be the highest quality stuff, literally, it could be old stuff you've got laying around. I need a set of wheels and tires for this thing. The wheels, I get that people reuse. The tires, I'll be happy initially with some tires that are just junk, just so I can get this thing kind of rolling and working. I can put the kids in it out here in the yard and even see if they're interested in doing something with it. Also, a body. You got an old body laying around? I'd be happy to kind of purchase one of those off of you, even though really it doesn't make a whole lot of sense because you can get bodies for a couple $100 now. Would be nice to have a body, wheels and tires, and then I can start setting this thing up, maybe building some of the Nerf bars that need to go off the side that tie the body in. I kind of finish this front pedal section. I know on the new ones they use cassettes for the bearings as well, so you can kind of move the axle up and down, which can put some stagger in this thing. I don't have that freedom with this setup, but for what I'm doing, I think I'll be fine just using spindle spacers to put stagger up front and try to get those cross weights in. Well, the new chassis that you see don't kind of have this section on the motor mount. They kind of come off and tie in up here, which I wouldn't be against doing if I felt like I needed to. It'd be a pretty easy fab job, just let chrome moly come off. I will tell you too, if the kids actually enjoy it, I wouldn't be against building a chassis from scratch. My design, you know, kind of take what I know works from a lot of these companies, but then just put my touches on it, which might be interesting to do. Then obviously we'll have to do some aluminum pans for it. I think that's aluminum, but this is the actual original pan that was in it. I just painted it. Probably make some of my own pans, bead roll them. I mean, of course, you got to bead roll it right. Do a seat pan, and then some classes, and I don't know, I'll have to kind of check on it, but allow you to like make diffusers back here. So may end up playing with that. So anyway, drop some comments down below. I don't know, some insight into kart racing that I need to know. I mean, I've watched a bunch of YouTube videos, so I feel like I'm kind of up to speed. Obviously, I know it's expensive and super competitive. Not really worried about that. We just want to go make some laps. If you've got anything that you want to donate or sell, hit me up, thefabforums@gmail.com, or just drop me a comment in the comment section of this video. And yeah, at the very least, we'll make some content around this thing. And if the kids aren't interested, maybe we'll do we'll just totally modify it and do a shifter cart or something. I don't know. Anyway, my new ripper. Not gonna take a ton of time. There's some other things I want to do. I want to get some work back on the Bibster. Got to kind of finalize the COVID coupe. And let me show you what I did with the K-member for the COVID coupe too. So I don't know if you remember, I got a K-member for the COVID coupe donated by Hicks House Videos on YouTube. I think he's on Instagram. I know he's on Instagram as well. Went ahead and painted it white. Obviously it's upside down right now. Got it painted white, and then the A-arms themselves have been painted too to kind of match the car. So I've been collecting parts for that thing. I kind of want to wait until I have a bunch of the stuff so we can make some serious progress on it. May order the rotating assembly for the engine pretty soon, get that thing off to the machine shop, and started ordering some of the turbo stuff. So anyway, COVID coupe will be back soon. Anyways, let me know what you think, advice, places to buy stuff, websites to buy Kart stuff from, whatever you guys can feed me, I'd appreciate it. As always, thank you for joining me. I'll see you guys in the next one. Go do work, son.